Welcome to The Bitch in My Brain, the personal growth podcast where we address negative self-talk, build confidence, own our self-worth, and have a good-ass time doing it. Hosted by me, Josie Woods, life coach, entrepreneur, and light chaser. Get ready to embrace self-love and start living in your light. Now let's get after it. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Bitch in My Brain podcast. My name is Josie. I'm so happy to be with you this week, and I use that word strategically. I, this week, want to discuss happiness and how we can welcome it into our life. And the reason why I want to talk about this is these last few months, have definitely been struggling with a huge problem. And the way that I have been navigating it has been through finding joy and happiness in areas of my life, even areas that my problem deals with. But I truly believe, and this is why I want to share, it has completely transformed my life. And the person I used to be before this work would have probably been spiraling. And the person I am now is taking it, on the chin, but with a smile on my face. And I want to show that it is possible to do that in our lives, even though there's so much uncertainty and so much anxiety and stress. It is possible to find the joy and to really connect with what it means to have a good time, like as a human even, There's so much going on in our outer world that can make us feel a little crazy or depressed, anxious, like I just said, and it doesn't always have to be that way. And ultimately, happiness is a choice, and it is an action that we take. And some days, happiness is not easily found. However, it can be found. And that's really what I want you to take away from this is it is possible to find happiness in these areas of our life. I think I just explained the same thing a few times, but I'm really jazzed up about this today because it has the chance to truly change the next hour for you or the next day, the week, the year, all the way for the rest of our life. This can be a very powerful thing to master. And I want you guys to understand kind of how I've come to master this. And I use quotes because, of course, I haven't fully mastered it, but I've gotten to a very confident place where I know deep down that I can find good in many things. So really what I do is I look at my life and what I would describe happiness as. And it used to be, a new car or things. Like it was very much materialistic. And as I've done this inner work, it has completely transformed from that. If anything, I have completely axed out any sort of materialistic things. I do have desires, there are things that I would love, that I want, but truly what I need in my life is happiness and joy. And what that looks like for me is simplicity and acceptance and being really intentional with how I live my life and finding those small moments of joy and happiness in the really basic things. And a basic thing that I found a moment of joy in, even it was today, it was an hour ago, but I was at the grocery store and I had a reading done by a medium last year, and she specifically told me, she goes, you need to have sunflowers, hence my little vase right there, when you record. And so I was like, fuck yeah, I can do that. But as the months have gone on, because it was last year, sunflowers can be hard to find, and honestly, they can be expensive. And I say expensive, but they're $7. But still, I'm coming from a place, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but I don't have an income coming in. So I'm starting to consider those small things. And so I kind of had to give up my sunflowers a little bit, swap in a different plant. But last week, it's sunflower season, so they're all over the neighborhood. And I felt really bad and guilty because I packed a little pair of scissors into my bag, and I passed by a neighbor's house. She has a bunch of them, but I snipped a little sunflower off. And I was like, oh, okay, but I felt a little guilty. So this week I was like, I can't do that. It felt too wrong or not even too wrong, but it just didn't feel right. And I went to the grocery store this morning, and I was walking in. I'm like, oh, I wonder if maybe, they'll have the sunflowers be a little bit cheaper since they're in season. Well, I walk in, they weren't, they were still $6.99. And I peeked my head into the little floral sale section, and I found a bunch of sunflowers, and they were, $2 for a little bundle or a bouquet. And I remember in that moment, I felt this ping of joy across my body, because although they're not, they're on sale for a reason. They're not the most aesthetically pleasing right now in their form. I'm pushing, positive energy their way. Maybe they'll have a good second bloom. I don't know. It's not possible. But what I realized was I found so much joy and happiness in the sunflowers simply being on sale. And I knew, like I just said, that they weren't the best looking in the bunch, but I was able to feel good purchasing them. I felt like I got a spanking deal, so that gave me a little bit of a buzz. But what makes me happy is having fresh flowers in the house and in my meditation room. And that simple act of finding joy in being able to bring home these flowers it was such a shift into my day. And so I really have made the effort to find those small, simple moments and pull joy or happiness for them, whatever they may be. Like the other day, I saw this locust, which, they're not the prettiest looking bugs out there, but I witnessed it freshly molt from its old skin. And so it was like translucent, and it was almost like rainbow. It was absolutely beautiful. And I was able to just look at that moment and feel that moment of, oh my gosh, I'm witnessing this, new life coming to form, and I'm witnessing transformation, and all of those things that are such a blessing to be able to witness with our own eyes, that most of us might pass by or be like, oh, cool bug. But I took that time to be like, ooh, that made me feel good being able to witness that. So it's little small moments of joy that can shift our, like I said, an hour, a day, a month, a year, just by noticing and bringing awareness to it. Because at the end of the day, and I'll say this a million times throughout the episode, but we have a choice to make those small moments mean something special. And we are always available and able to do that, even though at times it may not feel like that. We've all been in a shit mood and someone says, let's look at the bright side, which feels, you're almost like want to give them the finger and be like, fuck you, dude. Like, I can't look at the bright side. But we can, and it is possible. And one of the ways we do that is just to make things simple, make our lives simple. And that's another value of mine that I take really seriously. And kind of a recent example of this was I celebrated my birthday back in June, and Sam was out of town, and some of the girls that I'm friends with were also out of town. And everyone was like, well, what are you going to do? It's your birthday. What do you want to do? Blah, 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 blah. And the answer I already knew, and it wasn't going to dinner. It wasn't having people over. It was nothing crazy or out there. All I wanted to do, and I did this, was I went to the dog park with my dog and my mom, and we walked, a few loops. And then we went and got brunch. And that was one of the best birthdays I have had because it was so fulfilling. I could have been given gifts or, gone out to dinner, all of these kind of not necessarily grand things, but there's a lot of pressure behind them. And I don't want to feel that pressure. I want to feel that enjoyment. And I'm in control of that. And that was what was such an amazing thing to really see is I can have such a fun time and I can leave feeling energized just by taking a dog on a walk and eating, brunch with my mom, things that I do regularly. But I was very kind of intentional about making that day just full of happiness and joy and what it looks like to me. And before I keep going, all of our happiness and joy are going to look different. There is no right way to be happy. There is no right way to be joyful. And that's, where people start to say money doesn't buy you happiness. And it's so true because I could have all the money in the world. And if my happiness isn't in alignment, with materialistic things, then that's money's not going to bring me that happiness that I'm seeking. Now that kind of brings me into the money topic, and that next step of finding joy and happiness is really sitting in acceptance and looking for the greater lessons in things. And those can be big things all the way to small things. So right now, and I'm being completely honest with you guys because there is a little bit of anxiety underneath this. But as you know, I quit my job and started this podcast, and I'm not on the monetization level, but I haven't had an income, and that is something that I have been very uneasy about because I put a lot of my self-worth and pride in making money, and now I don't have that sort of buzz or whatever that gave me that, dopamine hit or whatever it was. And it's been a little nerve-wracking to not have things come in. And so, Sam has luckily been kind of floating us along, but, it's scary to not have something coming in. And as well as, you have to start living, maybe not living, but, using your credit cards more. And you start to see things, adding up. And that's where our anxiety has really come from. But the way I look at this is if I were to have kept my old job or immediately went and found clients, I would not have been able to get to this point in my life. I would have not been able to do something that I was passionate about, all because I wanted that financial stability. And financial stability is great. I'm not going to lie that is an element of what a happy life looks like for me. I don't need to make that six figures again, but a little cushion is nice. But basically what I'm pulling from this situation right now of not having an income come in is there is a lesson behind this. And when it comes to money, I truly believe that I needed to be shaken up, and I needed this fear around money to kind of come up to the surface, because when I was making money, I was very spendy with it. I don't know why I can't think of another word, but I would go to the mall and I'd have no problem dropping, $400 on jeans, or going out to eat, or buying just completely unnecessary things, because I was making that money, because I got that pat on the back or that dopamine hit of like, ooh, new stuff. You're doing so well that you can get this new stuff. So there were so many things underneath the behavior I had around money from my previous self. And by going through this time where, we do feel a little squeezed, I've now been able to completely transform my mindset around money and what money can provide me. And where I find the small moments of joy within this chaos is, like I just said, I'm learning a lesson. I'm changing my behavior because of this tough situation that I'm in, as well as like shifting how I believe money is going to bring me happiness in my life. And what happiness is around money is that stability, as well as this trust that everything is going to be okay. And that brings me happiness. If everything goes to shit, both Sam and I, we have a support system that could help us if it reached that level. Or there are opportunities that I can go out and, make money, but I don't have to sign up for this job or this client. Like, I have so many clothes that I can sell because of those $400 fucking shopping sprees, and I don't wear the damn clothes, which is like, ugh. But I find joy in knowing that no matter the situation with our money, we are learning something for it, and we are going to be better for it when, we're each making $1 billion. I'm just joking. But, I know that I can find the ways in which what I'm experiencing right now is going to help me and bring me joy. And it's not just, being in acceptance and looking for the lessons in those big moments. It's also, those small moments of acceptance. Like, this is such a funny one, but we have a rooftop patio. And the other day I was headed up there and I had, my AirPods and a water and my laptop, and I was, barely holding on to anything. And my AirPod case dropped, my AirPods flew out, and my right AirPod, which kills me because I always listen on my right side, fell through the cracks of the patio. And we tried to do a magnet to get it out. It didn't work. We tried to move up one of the beams by screwing out the nail or whatever, the screw. You know what? I'm not, you guys, I'm not a construction girly. So, but we tried to, pick up the beam and we weren't able to. So I really, in that moment, had to soften into the acceptance that my AirPods she's gone. She's going to be underneath the porch until we have a giant rainstorm. And I'm fingers crossed I'm going to find her out the gutter. And once again, double finger cross that she'll still work. But if she doesn't, if I never see her again, I'll be fine. But in that moment, I found joy in the fact that I was not panicking and I was very soft around the situation in that acceptance. And that's something that I truly don't think I could have said, hell, even like 2 days ago, or 2 days before that, because as I'm working on finding the joy and happiness in my life, it has become easier and easier. And I reflect on some of those small moments where, yeah, you would have caught me the day before freaking out, being like, oh my God, this is, the worst thing ever because now I'm going to have to buy new ones. And how am I going to edit the podcast with only one headphone? And, I could spiral. But in that moment, I was like, oh my gosh, I am so grateful and happy about the fact that I could move on from that situation and accept that that was what it's going to be. And I also learned a lesson to fucking next time I get my AirPods to maybe not set them on top of stuff where they can drop, well, who knows if that's the lesson. But it's so special when you're able to look at these situations that make you frustrated or angry or around money, scared or nervous, and kind of find your way out. And that's what all this inner work can do for us is we don't even have to be like solving all of our problems, but by or going deep into childhood or anything like that, if you're not ready for that. But if you're right at the beginning or you're curious, you can just really get clear on what happiness looks like for you. Is it spending more time with family? Is it traveling more? It can look however you want it to look. And that's what has been so incredibly helpful for me is getting clear on what makes me happy. And there's a lot of trial and error. Like this isn't, just, oh, I know exactly what would make me happy. Because a lot of times, and this just came into my head, a lot of times what we think will make us happy is also societal conditioning and what we think we need to make ourselves happy. And we're all different. And there are people that might find happiness in solitude and not hanging out with people or their family all the time. Like maybe quality time isn't a, form of happiness. Who knows? That seems kind of like a stretch. But like I said, we're all different and happiness comes in different waves. And I encourage you to begin by just keeping it simple. I keep looking over at these flowers and I'm just like, yes, that lights me up. Like how special it is to find joy in something so simple and that I can just look at and it jazzes me up. And I think that's truly the biggest thing I want you guys to take from this episode is happiness and joy are always available to us, even in the panic. And we are responsible for finding that joy and happiness in those small moments. And like I've said, it's a choice and it's an action. You ultimately choose whether or not you want to focus on what's going wrong and what's going right. And a little bit of that is due to the negativity bias in our brain. So we do, from a protective mechanism, it is easy for us to default to the negative or look for the bad. But we have enough power to switch the bitch in our brain off that wants to focus on that and choose to look for the good, choose to look for the joy and the benefit and the lessons, and then take those actions that align. Because I could say, okay, I want to spend my birthday going on a walk and going to brunch, but I could choose to go to a dinner or make a big thing that isn't in alignment with what would make me happy. I can go either way. And the important part is making that right choice and taking the right action that will lead you to that happiness and joy. And I am the poster child of how it can get easier and easier, and these big problems that we have can be simplified and digestible, and I can find peace within the chaos. I can find calm within this, chaotic money situation. All of these things I can find joy in, and I think I've said it that a million times, but that's the true message: is happiness and joy are there for you. You just have to choose them. So I hope that this episode maybe gave you a little bit of pizzazz, and I hope it opened up your mind and your eyes to what's going on around you and how you can begin to kind of kick off this space in your life to enjoy all of the crazy things that we experience as humans that are actually beautiful, and our gifts and our lessons that can only have a positive impact on our life. And that's truly the mindset to be in. When you choose happiness, when you choose joy, you're choosing a better life. And I hope that you all experience that better life that you deserve, that you're looking for, and most importantly, you are worthy of. So I hope you have a wonderful week, truly, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this episode spoke to you, and I can't wait to continue to share so much more. If you're feeling called, please subscribe and leave a review so together we can reach even more women who deserve to live their best life. And you can follow me on social at The Bitch in My Brain as I share my journey and life in real time. I can't wait to see you bitches next week. Take care.